So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on whether you're watching this live with us today or if you're watching the recording in the future. We're so happy to have you here. My name's Susan Harrell. It's my pleasure to produce these webinar sessions for you here at Neovation. For those of you who might be meeting us for the first time, we are Neovation. We do all forms of learning and development work, everything from fabulous platforms to deliver your training to our custom learning division that Adam is part of, that is able to build courses of all sizes, shapes, and scope. We are a human-powered company, but we say that we are fueled by AI because we're committed to using the most advanced tools possible to deliver the highest quality human-built work that we can do for you. We've been around since 2012, and we have thousands of happy users all around the world. One of the things that we have offered this year, because everything is all about AI, is we have relaunched the newer version of our practical prompting course. AI use, no matter whether you're doing text or images, is all about being able to write effective prompts. Adam's going to give you some great examples of prompts in today's session. But for yourself or your teams, this is a completely free resource. Pass it on. Um, we there's no fee. It's completely free. There's no paywall, no nothing. It's just there for you to use, and we're going to update it with courses as we go. So this is our gift back to the learning and development or any community really, in order to help you use today's tools with the best ability that you've got. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into today's session. We are recording the session, and Adam is putting together an incredibly rich prompt pack for you as well. So Gabby will be sending that out to you as soon as we get the recording processed and the prompt pack firmed up. Adam and I were talking yesterday. We're going to take some of the feedback and questions from today's session and make sure they're answered within the document because it is really extensive. So you should be seeing the recording of the prompt back by email from Gabby early next week, and it will also be available on the web page as well for the webinar. So you don't have to take notes, you don't have to worry, just sit back and absorb it all. Please use the chat to ask your questions as we go. We'll probably save many of them up for the end of the session because sometimes questions get answered as we get further into the presentation. So we'll make sure that they all get in front of Adam in a timely manner. And please use the emoticons to give us feedback as we go. Thumbs up, hearts, smiley faces, hopefully no frowny faces, to let us know how we're doing and how the content resonates with you. This can be as interactive and engaging as you would like it to be. So it is my pleasure to introduce my good colleague and good friend, Adam Lamb. He's a senior instructional designer with our custom learning department, and he is really spearheading a lot of our AI use in our custom learning department. He knows what he's talking about, and he's using AI in ways that I could not even imagine to deliver the work that we do. Um, so, Adam, I am going to stop sharing and send it over to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. We appreciate you sharing your expertise. So I'll do that, and let's dig in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Susan. Can folks see my screen? Awesome. Cool. Well, hey everyone, welcome in. I'm Adam Lamb, Senior Instructional Designer here at Neovation. For the next 36 minutes or so, I'm going to show you something that I do at the start of almost every custom learning project, which is take a pile of somebody else's content and turn it into a map of what they actually have and what they are missing. So, quick gut check. Somebody sends you a pile of content, a client, another department, a person who had your job before you. It arrives as a link to a shared folder or a zip or 4 zips. There's no manifest. There's no naming convention. Somebody at some point saved a file called onboarding deck 2 bracket 1 bracket.pptx, and that file is now load bearing. You open one, you close it, you open another, and about 40 minutes in, you realize you don't even know how many files are in there. If that's familiar, you're in the right room. Quick note on language. I'll mostly say content owner rather than client because plenty of you are doing this inside your own organization. Where I do say client, it's because that project was one. The method does not care. So here's the plan. I'll tell you about a real project, roughly 1,000 files, about 10 gigabytes, all of it buried in nested zip archives. Then I'll show you the workflow twice. Once in Claude Code, which is the heavy version for a big local job, and then once in Gemini Notebook, in a browser, which is the version you could run this afternoon with nothing installed. Everything I show you goes out afterwards as a toolkit. A setup guide, the actual prompts and commands, an intake primer, and a review checklist. So you don't need to write any of this down. Please put questions in the chat as we go. I'll take them at the end, and we've got about 10 minutes for that, depending on how quickly I go. So the project. A client handed over their entire training in Reference Universe as a single shared folder and walked away. No conversation about structure, no manifest, no map. Roughly 1,000 files, about 10 gigs. Most of it bundled inside several large nested zip archives. And the first thing that happened is that Windows refused to unzip it. And not just slowly, it just declined. The folder nesting was deep. The original file names were long, and between them, the full paths blew straight past the 260 character path limit Windows has carried since forever. Native extraction quietly gave up partway through without ever telling me clearly that it had. Think of it as the address box on a shipping label. There are only so many characters, and their folder names and your own username are competing for the same boxes. I want to sit on that because it's the most immediately useful thing in this session, and it takes one line to fix. The blocker in content intake is almost never the volume, it's the path length. There's a registry setting called long paths enabled that takes it off the table. You turn that on, you install 7-zip, and you stage everything under a deliberately short route, something like C:\demo. So you're spending your character budget on their folder names instead of your own username. You do that before you touch any zips, not after you've lost an hour wondering why half your files are missing. But that was the smaller problem. The bigger one is that a dump like this is disorganized, not just large. Specifically, duplicate decks sitting in 3 folders with their version history in the file name. Empty folders sitting right next to full ones. So this folder exists tells you nothing about this folder has anything in it. Mixed provenance. Source material tangled up with somebody's internal working drafts, and a genuine format mix. PDFs, decks, Word schedules, Excel trackers, screen recordings, and a .url file that isn't a document at all. It's a link to a SharePoint page. Now, here's the part that actually matters, and it's why I built this session. The most valuable thing you can get out of a content dump is a gap map. A clear read on which parts of the job they have material for and which parts they have nothing for. That map is what you take into your subject matter expert interviews. That map is what scopes the project. And in the traditional workflow, that map is gated behind the most tedious work in our field. Open a file, read enough to know what it is, type a row into a spreadsheet, repeat 1,000 times. That's days, and you cannot see a single gap until the sheet is full. So the insight you needed most arrives last, and it arrives when you're tired. And your judgment on file 800 is not what it was on file 12. So AI inverts that order. It does the reading and the counting cheaply and early. And the map builds itself as a byproduct of the structure. Your expertise goes into judgment instead of data entry. That inversion is the whole method. Everything else today is mechanics. So before I get into the how, I want to know who I'm talking to. So here's a quick one, and it's on the screen. Which version of this would you actually run in this scenario that we're talking about? Have a look and just type the number in the chat. One, two, three, or four.
Seeing lots of ones and twos so far. One lone three in there. Comment about technical proficiency. Adam and I talked about that yesterday when we were going through this. I'm strictly a plug and play kind of person. I do not do the code thing. Do not show me a prompt code slash thing. Lots of ones and twos. Ones and twos, the majority, Adam.
Oh, well, I think what we're seeing here, and this is what we'd probably expect from most folks. So I'm going to move fast through the machinery and spend more time on the output of this. So let me walk the method before I show it running. There are two movements. Movement A takes the raw dump and turns it into a catalog and a gap map. Movement B takes the readable sources and synthesizes them into a linked knowledge base you can actually design from. Today, we're focused on movement A because it's the one that unblocks everything else. But hold on to movement B. I'll come back to that at the end. So why Claude Code for the big job? And it isn't sophistication. It's that the work is local and executable. This job has to run real scripts against real files on a real disk, read the errors, and iterate. And it has to do that without uploading a gigabyte of somebody else's content anywhere. A chat tool is a brilliant consultant on the phone. It can tell you exactly what to do with the boxes in your basement. Claude Code is the one who comes over and opens them. A chat tool can plan this beautifully. It cannot do it. Claude Code can do it on my machine with the files staying exactly where they are. And before anybody writes this off, one thing I want to clear up early. In a few minutes, you're going to see me type into a terminal. That's because it's what I set up, not because it's required. The same thing runs inside of the Claude desktop app in a normal window with a file browser in a visual diff view. No command line anywhere. Same engine underneath. If the terminal is the part that's putting you off, just know that that's a preference, not a barrier. And the toolkit covers both. Second thing, and this is the one that I'd like to underline twice. Before you catalog anything, you need a spine. And a spine is a list of what the job actually consists of. On the real project, it was the client's own list of job tasks and call types. Every structural decision in the workbook got anchored to it. The drop-downs came from it. The reference tabs hold it. The gap map counts against it. A guest list shows you who showed up. A seating chart tells you table 7 is empty. A catalog without a spine is a guest list. That single decision is what turns an inventory into a diagnosis. Without a spine, a catalog is a very tidy list of files and it tells you nothing. With a spine, that same catalog tells you nobody has ever written a word about task 7. Identical machine work in both cases. The structure is what makes it mean anything. I'm all about metaphors. Comes in very handy in my line of work. The third thing, the column design. The catalog has two kinds of columns. Machine columns, which are locked. So the file name, the type, the size, the dates, the page counts, and an AI written summary. Then we have the human columns, which are open. Which job tasks does this support? Is it current? Who owns it? What happens to it next? The AI can suggest an alignment. It cannot assert one. And in about 8 minutes, I'm going to show you that this isn't a policy I'm asking you to take on faith. It's built into the formulas. Machine for breadth and tedium. Human for judgment. If you take one thing from today, take the fact that the line was drawn somewhere visible inside the document itself. So anyone who opens that file and can see what the machine claimed and what a person still owes. Last bit of setup. The workspace is 6 folders under a short root. Source zips, reference, extracted, catalog, logs, and scripts. That's it. It's boring. And it matters because when you're 4 levels into an extracted tree with long folder names, every character of your own path is a character you don't have to work with. All right, let me show you. But before I share my screen, an honest framing, because it changes how you should read this. The scripts in this demo are real ones. They came off the actual client engagement I described. They've been de-identified and pointed at completely fictional data, but the code is the code that did the real job. You're going to see very little of that today on purpose. All of it is in the toolkit. A terminal may look intimidating, but what you're about to watch is closer to texting. I type one sentence, it does the thing, it writes back what happened. So the fictional company is Northwood Home Services, residential HVAC, plumbing and electrical, 18 files, everything about them is invented. So this is the workspace. We've got 6 folders, nothing loose in the root. Right now, only one of them has anything in it, and it's the handover. 1 zip. That's what lands in your inbox. So you're going to see me enter a few commands here into the terminal. Don't worry about trying to copy any of them down. They'll all be included in your toolkit, and I'll run through them really quick. So what I just did, that was the whole thing. I know, scary, but it's over with. Let me read what just came back because the entire intake pass is in it. So we've got 2 file extractions, not one. You can see here now, we started with 1 zip file. There was a zip inside of that zip. So if you've done this work, you probably just made a noise. That's completely normal. It's a real handover, and native Windows extraction handles it pretty poorly. Then 18 files were cataloged. 16 of them had readable text. 1 screen recording with zero audio streams. Not a quiet track, no track at all. So there's nothing to transcribe. And it's been flagged for a person instead of pretending the AI read it. 1 empty folder was detected called 04 sample paperwork, and hold on to that one. 1 duplicate group, 2 copies of the same deck. About 4 seconds start to finish. And I want to be precise about what that number means because it isn't AI is 4 seconds of magic. A computer could always have read 18 files quickly. The tedious part of this job was never the compute. It was that nobody ever had the time to open 18 files and write down what was in them. That's the work that was actually expensive. That's the work that just disappeared. So 4 steps, and this is all of them. Extract, which handles the nested archives and the long paths. Probe, which checks the media for anything transcribable. Catalog, which walks the tree, reads metadata off every file, pulls readable text out of the PDFs and the Office documents, and writes the workbook. And Summarize, which is the one step with real latency. And I'll come back to that in a second. Every command behind those 4 steps will be in the toolkit. Copy and paste ready. You don't have to memorize anything from the screen. So 30 seconds on cost, because somebody's going to ask. And the useful part is that you can know the number before you spend it. On this demo, 16 readable files, just under 15,000 input tokens, for those of you who speak AI currency, or about 2 cents. On the real project, a 25 file sample cost about 10 cents and extrapolated to a few dollars for the whole library of nearly 1,000 files. A few dollars. That's the number worth remembering. And notice I could price it before I committed to it. And here's my one pre-bake, said plainly. Everything you just watched ran live. The summaries did not. Writing a 2 to 3 sentence summary of 18 documents is a real model turn, and it's the only step in this pipeline with genuine latency. So I ran it before we started. The prompt that did it is in the toolkit, and 2 things in it are worth stealing. It saves every 25 files. So an interruption only costs you 25 files and not the entire run. And it skips rows that already have a summary, so it's resumable. So here's what that produced. 7 tabs, 2 of them matter today, and the rest are reference. The catalog, which is 1 row per file, and content coverage, which is the gap map. So I'm loading the state that summary prompt produced, and it brings something with it. There we go. Four rows already have a job task mapped. That's not me staging a demo. That's the workflow. The AI wrote the summaries, and the content owner has started filling in mappings. That's exactly where a real catalog sits 3 days after you hand it over. So bear with me. I'm going to change some visuals here so I can demonstrate things. Okay. Now, the part I actually care about. I'm splitting the workbook into 2 windows on the same file. We've got our catalog on the left, content coverage on the right. It's the same workbook, live linked, so you can watch both halves at once. This is the gap map. 8 job tasks down the left. Northwind spine. How many files mapped to each one? And a status. 3 tasks have coverage right now. From those pre-filled mappings, 5 read gap, no content, in red. Before I touch anything, let's look at the formula. It might be hard to see on your screen, but what it's doing is it's reading column J from from the catalog tab. This is the primary job task, and it's a human column. The AI suggested alignment lives over in column H, which is locked. In this formula never looks at it, which means the machine's opinion is structurally incapable of moving this gap map. Not by policy, not because I promised you it wouldn't, but by formula. The AI can put its suggestion in a locked cell and wait there. These numbers only move when a person commits a decision in an open column. That's the entire governance story of this workbook in one cell reference. And it's the strongest thing in it. So let's be that person and take a look at these three files. So if we look at J13, so row 13 is taking a service call step by step. And so I know, coming in here as the subject matter expert, that this is effectively booking a service call. So what happens as I'm updating these fields in the left pane, in our gap map pane on the right. So gone, 0 to 1, and the gap closed while I was talking. So let's take a look at row 7, which is dispatch board training deck. And this one I know is scheduling and dispatch. There we go. Another one locked in. And then one more for good measure. We've got row 14, the warranty and service plan coverage policy. So I know this is warranty and service plans. Boom. So 3 decisions, 3 gaps closed, and nobody typed a file name. The map maintains itself because the counting was never the hard part. So 2 things before I close this out. First, the amber coloring. Tasks 5 and 6 aren't red. They're thin. 1 source each. That's a different conversation from a gap. A gap says there's nothing. Thin says we have one thing. And if it's wrong or out of date, we have nothing and don't know it. Presence is not depth. And your coverage tab should be able to tell the difference. And second, this tab, which nobody built by hand. The duplicate deck is here because the script hashed the file contents and found 2 identical files. 32 kilobytes of wasted space. Worth saying that out loud. It did not find that by reading bracket 2, bracket 1 in the file name. Rename either copy and it's still caught. The silent video is here as well. And the empty folder is here. 04 sample paperwork, created, named, never filled. Which brings me to the 2 rows that didn't close. On-site safety check and escalation of complaint handling. 0 and 0. Northwind sends technicians into people's homes to work on gas, water, and electrical. And in the entire content handover, there is not one safety document, not a checklist, not a procedure, not a sign-off. What there is an empty folder called sample paperwork. That's not a dark data quirk. That's a risk finding. And it took 4 seconds of compute and 3 drop-down clicks to service it. This is where the gap map stops being a spreadsheet. It's not a scoreboard where you want all the numbers just to go up. It's the agenda for your first subject matter expert conversation. You walk in already knowing the 2 things to ask about, instead of spending an hour confirming what you already had. So, so let me come off the demo, because if I stop there, I've told you a story where the machine did everything well. And that isn't the story. Everything you just watched, I built over the last couple of days. And at one point, the pipeline ran perfectly. Every step completed, every automated check passed. Green across the board. And the workbook it produced was completely unusable. You could open it in Excel and not click on a single cell. Not a locked one, not an open one. The whole sheet was inert. The mapping columns I've just spent 10 minutes telling you are where the humans do their work could not be typed in. The cause was a single protection setting that reads like a permission and actually behaved like a prohibition. So the thing I set to let people in was the thing keeping them out. Now the part that should bother you. Nothing caught it because every check read the workbook back through the same library that wrote it. And the library reported the setting back with exactly the same inverted meaning it wrote it with. The file looked correct from the inside. The round tripping proved only that the tool agreed with itself. That's proofreading your own writing out loud. You hear what you meant, not what's on the page. The thing that found it was me opening the file and trying to click a cell. So that's the that's the rule I've taken out of it, and it's in your toolkit. For anything about how a document behaves for a human being, automated verification is not evidence. Open it. Use it the way the person you're handing it to will use it. So when I say the human checkpoint isn't ceremony, that's what I mean. The AI cataloged, extracted, counted, and suggested, and it did all of that well. It could not tell me the thing it produced was unusable because it had no way to experience it. That's not a limitation you fix with a better model. That's the reason the checkpoint exists. Objection time, and it's the most common one I get. The first demo involved a terminal, a Python install, and a local machine. If your reaction was, well, Adam, that's great, but I don't write code. All you number ones in the audience, I hear you. And that's totally fair. And I'd rather take it seriously than talk you out of it. And the honest answer is that job that I showed you was 1,000 files across nested archives, and it genuinely needed to execute code against real files without uploading anybody's sensitive content. But most content drops are not 1,000 files. They're 12. And for 12, you can get most of the same value in a browser with no scripts, no API key, and nothing installed. Same method, two scales. And that's deliberate, because a workflow you can't actually run isn't really a workflow. All right, so quick note on the name. The tool I'm showing you right now is called Gemini Notebook, or you may know it as Notebook LM. Google renamed it back in July, and it's the same product, same notebooks, same sources, just a new logo. So if you register for this expecting Notebook LM, that's what you're about to watch. I'll use the same name throughout. So we've got the same fictional company, different job. Northwind is launching service plans, and they've sent over 6 documents. This is the tidy version of a content drop. A plans overview, a pricing sheet, a customer support talk track, an objection handling guide, a cancellation policy, and a launch FAQ. The sources are already uploaded over here on the left, because watching me drag 6 files into a browser is not really a good use of your afternoon. Everything after this is live. The important thing here is on the left. Those 6 sources are the only thing this tool will use. It isn't going to go out to the web, and it isn't filling gaps from general knowledge. If a claim isn't in one of those documents, it doesn't appear. and every line it writes points back to where it came from. For our work, that constraint is a feature. The source content is the only ground truth that matters. So let's give it a job. Over here on the right is the studio panel. It's where you ask for a finished document rather than a chat answer. What about to ask it for is a finished document, is a one-page job aid. For a customer service rep enrolling somebody in a service plan for the first time. So I just pasted the instructions in, and I'm going to let it work. So this one takes a minute, which after that first demo is probably almost relaxing. And while it runs, notice what that prompt actually does. Almost none of it describes the content. It's constraints. 400 words, bullet points only, name only 3 tiers with the prices. British spelling, don't invent an acronym, don't use words that aren't in the sources. Writing the constraints is most of the work, and it's the part worth stealing. The whole prompt will be in your toolkit. Now, here's what to notice when it lands. Everything in it came out of 6 documents that agree with each other. Same tier names, same prices, same effective date. I made that content boring, inconsistent on purpose, because source consistency is the biggest lever on output quality that has nothing to do with the model. Feed a tool 3 versions of a pricing sheet that disagree, and you don't get an error message. You get a confident job aid with a wrong price in it, and a rep reading it out loud to a customer. That's also why the intake work matters upstream of this. Deduplication and currency aren't housekeeping. They're the difference between grounded output and confidently wrong output. So switching back to Notebook, I still say Notebook LM. Thanks, Google. But we can see that it's finished cooking. So there it is. We've got before the call, during the call, and after the call. And objections lifted straight out of the objection guide. And citations back to the sources. So when a subject matter expert challenges a line, you click through to the document it came from instead of defending the AI. And here's a 30-second bonus. In this one I ran earlier. From the same 6 sources, completely different document. 10 questions, a full answer key, and a glossary that defines the plan tiers in the cooling off period using the words from the source documents rather than mine. That is the point worth taking. One source set, several deliverables. And I did not re-explain the business once. The sources are the context. Now, the honest boundary, because I'd rather you hear it from me. What this does not give you is the gap map. It summarizes and reshapes what you gave it beautifully. It does not count coverage against a job task spine and tell you what's missing, because it has no spine and no picture of the whole job. For 12 tidy files, that's usually fine. And you can hold that shape in your head. For 1,000 files, you can't. At least I can't. And that's exactly where the first workflow earns its terminal. So the last 5 minutes, and this is the part that matters most for your team, because a demo you watched once is entertainment. Well, I hope you found this entertaining. What makes it worth your Wednesday is the parts that stay the same every time. 6 things I'd standardize. 1, define the spine before you touch the files. not after. The list of tasks, roles, or processes the job actually consists of. If the task owner already has one, use theirs. If they don't, drafting one, drafting one with them is the most useful first meeting you'll ever have. And it doubles as a scoping conversation. Two, fix the environment before extraction. Long path support on, a short route, 7-zip, 6 folders. 10 minutes once, and it removes the failure mode that eats an afternoon. 3, lock the machine columns, open the human ones. Draw the line inside the document where people can see it. 4, anchor your counts to the human column. If your cover, if your if your coverage formula reads the AI's column, you've built a machine that grades its own homework. 5, triage before you count, deduplicate, and split readable from binary. 967 columns is not 967 documents. And if you quote the raw number to a stakeholder, you'll be wrong in a way that's awkward to walk back. 6, guardrail the spend by default. Do a dry run, then a small sample, then the full job. Not because it's expensive, but because I can tell you what this costs before I run it is the difference between using AI on this work and asking permission every single time. So all of that is going to be written down for you. 4 assets, 1 document. A setup guide, the environment work end to end, including the lighter Gemini workbook path if the code route isn't for you. A prompt and command pack, every command you watched me type in both prompts. Copy and paste ready, plus everything I skipped over today. An intake primer, how to design your spine and your columns before you build anything, and a gap analysis and review checklist, including a confidentiality checklist for handling content that isn't yours, because that question comes up every time. This is written and ready, but it goes out next week rather than today because I want to fold in what you asked me first. If something in either demo needs more explaining, say so in the chat and it goes in. And before we go into questions, remember this one. The half I grayed out at the start and told you we weren't doing today, that's movement B, turning the readable sources into a linked knowledge base you can actually design from. So I want to know what would actually be useful to you folks next. Same as before, it's on the screen. Just type the number in the chat. And this is a genuine question, not a sales one. Sorry, Susan. I really want to know this, so I can come back with the most useful content to you folks. So, are you keen to understand what would happen next? Would you did I light your curiosity about the terminal? Is it maybe it's not so scary as it was before? Would you rather have a written resource or something else entirely?
Seeing lots of ones, some ones and twos, some threes and fours.
Cool. Thank you all very much.
Ah,
Um, so I want to come back to the portability point one more time because it's the whole reason there are 2 demos. The method is identical at both scales. Get a spine, catalog against it. Let the machine do the breadth. Keep judgment in a column with your name on it. Read the gaps, not just the contents. The only thing that changes between 12 files and 1,000 is which tool can physically carry the load. I'll leave you with the thing I actually believe, and it's why I keep doing intake this way rather than the fast way. The gap map isn't impressive because a computer made it in 4 seconds. It's impressive because it existed on day 1 instead of day 9, while there was still time to do something about it. A safety gap you find in week 1 is a scoping conversation. The same gap found in week 6 is a problem. Point the machine at the pile. Spend your expertise on what it means.
Thank you, Adam, for all the work and time you put into sharing this knowledge. And I look forward to working with you on the part B of this for the next steps for probably early next year. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. We appreciate your time, and we're sending you back with a few minutes before the top of the hour to give you back 5 minutes of your day. Thanks, everyone.